violent crime. And like I told you before, this was a data-driven operation. We were not going into any community that didn't have that we didn't have data on as far as the number of calls for service, the violent crime that was occurring in those areas. And so our troopers were coming in and making a positive impact. And a lot of the community members were very appreciative of what we were doing in the community of Austin.
Welcome back, viewers, watchers, listeners. I'm your host, Tyler Owen. We are in the studio today with Field Services Supervisor Mike Gomez, and our guest today is DPS Director Gabe Ortiz. What's going on, gentlemen?
Is the pollen really bad? Because I'm really tired.
Yeah, I am too. I was exhausted. My son today, which usually is my bright, he's my jump out bed guy, right? He jumps right in the shower, and it took a little bit to get out of bed today. So I think that's,
I just want to be sure I wasn't the only one.
No, you're not. You're not. Of course, we have that hospice bed now. Me and my wife, we ended up getting a good deal on a fundraising event there in Wimberley, but all was good. Mike, what's going on with you, man?
You know, we've been really busy out on the road.
Yeah.
A lot of events have been coming up. It's just a time of the year where the weather's good, so a lot of events are happening, either whether it's a golf tournament or a fundraiser or even a barbecue cook-off somewhere.
Right.
Or even just a community event where we have a lot of officers working the event.
Yep.
And we're showing up to try to give some service, you know. But it'll slow down around July when it gets real hot. Nobody wants to do anything.
I'm fine with that. That's fine. Everybody's out of school too. So big success on the sports capital of Texas Motorcycle Rodeo are us and Round Rock Police Department, Round Rock Express. Great event, great time. It's always good. It's starting to become kind of a family reunion. Some of those motor guys continue to come to that event, and they have into first year, and so it's good to see those continue to show up and support that.
Yeah, I mean, you have 100+ riders out there, and they're starting to become familiar faces.
Yeah, just like our conference.
Yep.
So.
Well, glad to hear that, because a lot of those guys that are actually riding are from the capital region. So
they are, really, and your guys represented well, and they are on their best behavior, Director, I can assure you. So.
Right. Glad to know it.
Speaking of conference, July 24th through the 26th, we're back in Dallas at the Hyatt Regency. You guys can check out tmpa.org. There's a splash screen on there. It will direct you over to a website called Handbid, which is the registration process that we utilize here at Tmpa. That website also allows you to purchase auction items and to bid on our biggest fundraiser for the year for Tmpa Charities, which I think Tmpa Charities is our #1 give back program here at Tmpa. We assist officers and families going through hard times, losing the house fires, and it also supplies our line of duty death benefit here at Tmpa, which is something we don't like to do, but it's part of the job and nature of the beast. So our Tmpa Charities event is always at our conference, and you can purchase those auction online items through the registration process for our conference. Again, July 24th through the 26th, joint Tmpa Texas FOP conference. We will be there. So anyway, let's dive off into our guest. Director Gabe Ortiz has got an interesting story and a very, very, very successful DPS career. We want to bring him on and talk about the ins and outs of DPS and how he got started. And really, I guess we should kick this off by just saying, who the hell is Gabe Ortiz? Where'd you start off? Where'd you grow up? And what interested you in going to DPS?
Do you want the long version or the short version?
Yeah, whatever version you want to explain to us.
Because law enforcement was not in the cards for me. It's not something I even thought about. My dad was a welder by trade. I was supposed to go work out in the plant with Dad. I tried community college. It didn't quite work out. So it was Dad's idea to take me to a military recruiter.
Wow.
Because I was on a downward spiral, wasn't doing that great in school, was kind of screwing off and just being a knucklehead. So Dad took me to a military recruiter, and it's the same kind that probably exists today. That's in the shopping strip between Academy and Gold's Gym. And this is in Brazoria County, by the way, where I grew up. I was born in Freeport, Texas. Graduated from Brazos Wood High School in 1991, and again, tried college for about a year, just didn't quite work out. So Dad takes me to this recruiter, and we walk in, and honestly, the only guy there at the time was the Air Force recruiter. And so we walk in, and he said, "Can I help you?" Dad says, "Yeah, my son wants to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." I didn't really know what I was going to talk to him about, but I talked to him and I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I guess I'm here to talk to somebody about the military." And he says, "Well, let me come on back here. Let me show you a couple of videos. And my first choice was something related to satellites. I think satellite communications. Second choice was security police. And satellite communications would have taken like 6 months delayed entry program. Security police was probably like 30 days. And so after taking the ASVAB test and doing all the things, recruiter calls me and says, hey, if you want your second choice, you can be gone to San Antonio in a matter of about a month. And so I told Dad, and Dad said, hey, son, I guess you're going to be a security police officer.
Yeah.
And that's what started my career in law enforcement. And that was in November of 1992. So I was gone to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, went through basic training, went through technical school, Security Police Academy, graduated. And my first duty station was in Malmstrom, Montana.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, Great Falls. Never been there. Matter of fact, I had to pull out the U.S. map to figure out where Montana was. So go to Montana, spent 2 years there, got sent to Incirlik Air Base, Turkey, did some time in the Middle East and in Europe, and then finished out my last year at Dyess Air Force Base. Well, that's what brought me back to Texas. So when I got out in 1997, needed a job. So I was like, hey, maybe I'll just stay in law enforcement. And so I applied for Taylor County Jail, worked for the sheriff's office for about 1.5 years. And while I was working in the jail, I met a guy by the name of J.C. Welch. J.C. was an old retired trooper, retired from TABC as a lieutenant. We're working alongside each other for several months. And J.C. says, Gabe, what are you doing here? And I was like, what do you mean? What am I doing here, J.C.? I'm working with you. Yeah, we're working. And he said, Gabe, I've worked alongside you for the last few months, and you're way too sharp, and you got way too much potential to be working in the jail. This is a retirement job for him.
Right.
And he's like, you don't need to be in the jail.
Well, kudos to that guy for doing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what he said, next time a trooper comes in, we're going to go talk to him about DPS. So the trooper, Anthony Bennett, who just retired as a CID lieutenant about a year or so ago, and I told this same story at his retirement. Anthony Bennett, J.C. Welch calls me to booking, and he says, hey, there's a trooper booking a prisoner in. He says, come on down here. So I come down here, and he did something similar to what my dad did. Bennett comes out, and he says, hey, troop, Officer Ortiz wants to speak to you. And I said, he said, what's going on, guys? I said, well, I'm interested in DPS, but I'm not really sure what DPS does, or, I really didn't know much about DPS until JC mentioned it. So, he says, well, here's what we do. We patrol, the highways across Texas. We do interdiction. There's a lot of other things that we do. We got multiple divisions, but here's the gist of what we do. As a matter of fact, I've got an application out in the car. I'm supposed to give it to somebody else, but they haven't called me back. So if you want it, you can take it. And he said, the thing is, you got 2 weeks to meet the deadline for the next recruit school. So I go take the application, and back then, paper application, it seemed like it was about 100 pages long to fill out this application, very thick. I had to go get my high school transcripts, all the documents that you needed for the application. So started filling out the application. Wife says, what are you doing? And I said, I'm filling out an application to be a Texas State Trooper. And she's like, well, what's that? And I said, well, I'm not really sure, but they make about $35,000 a year. So we're going to be rich because at the time, as you guys know, back in the 80s, man, I was making about $20,000 a year working at the county jail. And that was just not cutting it for us. And we had small kids at the time. So I put in the application, did all the testing, and get a call months later that I got accepted to the DPS Academy of 899. And so that's what started my career with Texas DPS, and started September 27th of 1999, and went to recruit school, graduated in March 31st, 2000. Got my first duty station at Lake Jackson, which is home for me, which is never a good idea to go back to your home.
No, it's not.
After you graduate the police academy, because we all know that we're going to run into family members and friends and get put in situations that may be a little difficult. But, that's what kind of started, at least as a trooper. Spent 4.5 years in Lake Jackson, as a trooper. And then I kind of started taking tests for back then it was called Criminal Law Enforcement Division. Now it's Criminal Investigations Division. And then back then you had multiple, you had different services. You had narcotics service, you had motor vehicle theft service, you had special crimes. And so I took tests for special crimes and narcotics and happened to make the interview board for narcotics and special crimes, and went to the interview board for special crimes and found out the next day that I was getting promoted to, back then they were called sergeant investigators. Yep. Today it's special agent, but got the promotion. So I didn't even go to the narcotics board. And then got my first duty assignment in CLE back then was El Paso. Never been to El Paso. But that was really the only thing that they had. The commander called me, and this is, obviously we've had a lot of title changes over the years, but the commander said, "Hey, Gabe, we'd like to offer you a position. First of all, congratulations on the promotion. We'd like to offer you a position in El Paso." And I'm kind of waiting. Is there, for some other
What's the tagline? Yeah.
Anywhere else I can go. And El Paso was it. I think the last 3 or 4 of us didn't have a choice. That's where the vacancies existed. And so we got sent to El Paso, and never been. Culture shock for me. I mean, I'm Hispanic.
It's a different Hispanic, though.
Very different.
And what position exactly? Like, what were you be doing? It was special.
So the great thing about special crimes, and what I like about special crimes, is that, I mean, there was so many different things that you can do. You weren't just limited to doing, like, let's say, narcotics investigations.
Right.
Yeah, we can actually dabble in narcotics investigations if we wanted to, but we focused on fugitives, racetrack investigations. I mean, we had guys assigned to the U.S. Marshal Task Force. We had guys assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. It was just a lot of different things that we did in special crimes. And so that's what I enjoyed. I mean, I actually, that's where I really started working a lot of gang investigations, and became a subject matter expert in gangs while I was in El Paso. So spent a lot longer than I anticipated in El Paso. I was thinking maybe we'd do a year or so, or 2 years, and then come back to Central Texas, or maybe even South Texas, Southeast Texas.
Right.
And we ended up staying for 8 years.
Wow.
In El Paso. Yeah. And I went from sergeant investigator, and of course they changed, did a reorganization, and then we became Criminal Investigations Division. And then, we had special agents. I actually went from, special agent, sergeant investigator to lieutenant to captain in those 8 years. And it was a great experience. We had an opportunity to work a lot of the cartel investigations out there. I was on the Safe Streets Task Force out there, Joint Terrorism Task Force out there. It's just a lot of
exposure.
Just a wealth of experience for me, and met some really good people. There's some guys out there that I still know today. That, matter of fact, the region chief who's out there today, he actually was one of my guys. I think when I was captain out there, he was one of my lieutenants that worked drugs, because we changed the title again. It was narcotics then, and then they changed it to drugs, and then we had gangs, and then we had special investigations. So, but yeah, decided to come back. We were like, hey, this is our opportunity to come back to Central Texas. It was around 2012. That was the vacancy at headquarters, and I told my wife, I said, hey, we've been in El Paso for quite some time, but it is so far from everything else in Texas, My family's still in the Houston area. Her family was from Abilene.
Also,
and
12 hours away from
Houston. Yeah, man, it was, everything was so far. And I mean, there's a time difference out there. You're an hour behind out there.
Yeah.
And so in 2012, we had an opportunity to come back, and I put in for a position at our headquarters. It was in CID administration. And so we came back and have been here, ever since, and have actually promoted a few times since then. But
and what is a position like that? What would be the day-to-day operations for that type of position coming back to headquarters? I mean, like, you obviously show up to the office, but are you kind of the end all say all of what starts the investigations, or do you just oversee cases, or how does that kind of work? Because honestly, the cool thing about DPS that if somebody's never really been a trooper, it's kind of that you don't really understand. Most police departments, it's this way structured, because sometimes you have police chiefs go to DPS is kind of its own standalone entity. I mean, hell, y'all do reports y'all's own way from start to finish. And so it's kind of interesting from that standpoint of, like, so what exactly does that position do?
I wish it was that. But CID administration actually was more on I mean, it's in the title. It was on the administrative side. So you handled issuing of equipment to the agents.
Okay.
And you basically kept up with the fleet inventory of all the vehicles. New vehicle issuance. You kept up with. You made sure that all the agents got the training that they needed, whether it was rate entry or some type of Fourth Amendment training. And so all those that's kind of what you supervised in that area was like training and admin staff that were over fleet and all those different things. So it wasn't the most exciting job.
Right.
It's necessary, but it wasn't the most exciting job. So I honestly, I only spent probably about a little over a year in that position. And then I was like, I got to get back out in the field. So I transferred back out to the field as a captain. I was still a CID captain, but transferred and had the Waco district for CID. And this is about the time when they had the shooting at Twin Peaks between the Banditos and Cossacks in 2015. So those were my guys up in Waco that were on the ground when the shooting happened.
And you're basically just overseeing that big of an operation when they. For those that don't know, the listener out there that's not law enforcement, DPS will get involved at the request sometimes, specifically Rangers and state investigators, at the request of the DA's office or the head of the agency. So when something that huge happens, like the Cossacks and Bandito shooting, I'm sure that letter was typed up or email was sent rather quickly about the assistance of needing DPS. And the cool thing about having DPS in your corner investigations like that, their labs are significantly quicker than you would sending it off somewhere else or at the agency. So having DPS involved in investigations like that, number one, is manpower, but number two, the resources DPS has. As Director Ortiz was saying, it's magnificent, and it's also it can expedite some things that you necessarily wouldn't have in your back pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work great with the locals. Sometimes we do. Well, we have the autonomy to work our own investigations. Parallel investigation. But if it's going to involve, if all of a sudden an investigation is there's a link there between an investigation that somebody else is working, whether it's the locals or maybe the feds. And we've got great partnerships with all those agencies, and it's never been an issue for, hey, we want to work this jointly, or hey, you guys are so involved in it, you've got a lot more than we do. We'll just let you run with it. We'll just hands off and call us if you need something.
I do have to ask us as a joke. You don't have the Ranger sprinkle dust, because I don't care what happens. Anybody in CID with DPS, if a Ranger picks up the phone and he needs something back from the lab, they sprinkle that Ranger, the Ranger dust on there, and it happens just like that. Is that true or false?
Honestly, our crime lab, it really just it depends on the severity of the case and the priority of the case. We all know that politics plays a role in everything that we do. I mean, especially for me, I'm at the capital region, right? So it really depends. I mean, is it a high profile case? Yeah. Is it something that we need to make a priority? So there is times where if there's something that's high profile, or hey, this is something that the colonel has requested, or somebody in politics has requested, then I think the crime lab will move a little bit quicker.
Yeah, well, that's always a joke with my DPS friends that I hang out with, and I've got a lot of Ranger friends that it used to annoy me so bad because they would pick up the phone and I just make the same phone call, and the Ranger does it, and who, keep in mind, was a trooper 2 weeks before that, or a trooper sergeant, and all of a sudden he's a Ranger. It's a comical thing, but I respect the hell out of those guys. Yeah, love them to death. Everyone that I've known have been great. But so you're in Waco, you get transferred up there. At what point? How long did you stay in that position?
I was in Waco for about 2 years, and I had a conversation with the assistant chief at the time, and he said, "Hey, Gabe, we're going to have a vacancy in the gang program." And this is just a lateral. It's not a promotion, but in the gang program, they had captains that kind of oversaw the gang program for the state and made sure that all the regions that they stayed on task. And, we would create goals and objectives and prioritize the investigations. And basically, we would look at who's committing the most crime as it relates to gangs, and are our agents focusing on these gangs. And so it was a close relationship between headquarters and the field. But the assistant chief said, "Hey, Gabe, you got a strong background in gangs from being in El Paso, and the major of the gang program is going to be retiring soon. That could be an opportunity for you." So I actually came back. It was just a lateral, but I transferred into the gang program, and that was about 2016. And so spent about 2 years there, really enjoyed it. And that's when I really got involved. I've been involved with Texas Gang Investigators Association since about 2005, but even more so when I got to the gang program as a captain, and then became really involved with the Texas Violent Crime Task Force,
Yep.
or I'm sorry, the Violent Gang Task Force. And so, man, it was really, really great because that was kind of where my passion was.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed working gangs. And then shortly after that, about 2 years later, is when I got appointed to major and assigned to the Capital Region.
That's cool. And what exactly does that entail for that position?
So it's very unique. Unlike some of the other regions, I mean, you don't work traditional CID investigations. I mean, outside of the Capital Region, you're working more organized crime. I mean, you're working drugs, you're working gangs, you're working fraud. There's a lot of different things you do. Where as a capital, at the Capital, you're more of a reactive force. Crime happens, and they call CID, and it could be a threat directed toward one of our legislators, and we have to do a follow-up investigation, or a theft occurs on the Capitol ground. Somebody, let's a state rep or senator is, alleges that something was stolen from their office, car broken into. We've recently had a sexual assault at the Capitol that we started. We'll actually do the preliminary workup, and then we'll call the Rangers to handle the sexual assault investigation. There's just so many different things that we do, and then we've got a counter surveillance mission where our guys are operating covertly around the Capitol grounds, looking for indicators of criminal activity or possible terrorist activity.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just the day we live in. I mean, there's people out there, bad actors looking to attack critical infrastructure, especially, the symbolic Texas State Capitol.
Yeah.
So it's a very different mission, but I had a really good group of guys that do that mission every single day, and we get a lot of recognition for it. But we also, potentially because of the politics of it, if they don't like something we're doing, I'm going to hear about it quickly.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up. From being at the Capitol, it's a different animal when it comes to, who should be working at the Capitol, who shouldn't be working at the Capitol. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, and our rephrase this for some of our viewers out there. What we used to see back in the day with SROs, it was sometimes, unfortunately, the guy that was done on patrol didn't want to be there anymore, but had 2 or 3 years left, and so they wouldn't stick him in the school.
Yeah,
they'd stick him in the school, but that's the wrong person to send to a school, especially to being politically correct and dealing with kids. That's been a big change over the last, I think, 10 years. You see a lot better now. You have more structure, more actual police departments. But let me ask you this. So, the protest, I know that's probably a lot of intelligent gathering on how many you think are going to show, where it's coming from and what their intentions are. Can you kind of walk us through kind of just when you get that call that you have the information that you are going to have protest on Saturday?
Yeah, and I usually, we do a really great job, especially on the intel side. We had a whole division dedicated to intelligence, the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division, which has now changed to Homeland Security Division. They still have the intelligence component. They just changed the division title. But, we usually bring in, and we rely on our intelligence analysts to provide us with information on if there's going to be a protest. I mean, they follow social media. They follow, multiple platforms to get that information about, hey, there's going to be a protest. And, sometimes it's hard to determine how many people are going to show up. But on social media, a lot of times it's, they're like, they'll give you an opportunity to check the box, are you going? Are you going or not going? Or, but still that helps us some. But you just never know. We just recently had the No Kings protest, last weekend. The first one that we had last year at the state capitol was about 15,000 people. And we really didn't predict that. We did the best we could, and we brought outside resources in, troopers from FFO teams, field force operation teams from across the state, to augment my troopers. But we certainly didn't anticipate 15,000 people. We estimated probably about half of that.
Yeah.
And we do like I said, our analysts do a really good job. I think probably 90% of the time, we can probably predict plus or minus 5-10% on the numbers of people that are going to attend those protests.
Well,
and we're really good about getting the intel. I mean, you can see the chatter on social media on some of their intentions. Are they going to be peaceful? Are there going to be some agitators that show up? Yeah. And so far so good. We've done a really good job, and also we got a call from UT last year. This is with the Israel-Hamas conflict. Shortly after that, you started seeing a lot of pro-Palestinian protests across the nation, and we started to see them at the UT campus. And so the UT called us, and we supported them on campus. And those are the things that that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night, because as long as nothing happens, we can rest easy.
Yeah.
It's just a success.
Yeah, it's a success. Nothing happens. Yeah. So, but you just never know. I mean, when you've got that many people, there was one pro-Palestinian protest at the Capitol that turned out about 20,000 people. And it was peaceful. Out of that group, there was probably about 150 agitators. But I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, if these people were to turn against us, there's really nothing we can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get caught in those situations, but I think a lot of planning. We do a lot of operational planning before these. We'll activate our emergency operations center, and we've got all the resources in. And it's not just DPS. It's our local partners. APD. We work with with the feds quite a bit on the intel side as well. But I mean, it's a collaborative effort to make this thing a success.
How challenging can it be? You coming from El Paso, then working in Waco, and then you're here in Austin, right? And we've talked about the Austin politics a lot, and I'm not going to certainly dive off into it. But managing and supervising troopers in this area, with the political environment that Austin is so unique, right? From the DA's office to the city council, you seem to have a very well balanced, even kill type mentality. And you come into Austin, who historically has done some anti-law enforcement things. We talked about this off camera about the George Floyd and the defund movement in 2020, and now you're having to manage these people. What message or what position does that kind of put you in from being a state government director of DPS and then trying to push that message to, number one, keep your troops' morale up and stay focused on the mission? I'm sure it's a difficult task.
It can be at times, especially with the politics, like you said. I mean, there was a lot of cases that, during George Floyd, I mean, we filed multiple cases. Some of them were ag assault against a public servant. We had several troopers that were assaulted. There was some vandalism, there was criminal mischief. There was a lot of different things that happened at the Capitol, and a lot of those charges got dismissed. And so it's very, very, it's demoralizing. It's disappointing. But one of the things I tell these troopers when they're coming in is like, hey, we can't control anything beyond what we can control. If we see a violation, we make an arrest. And so that's all we can do. If we take somebody to jail based on, some charges, whether it's an assault or whether it's a theft or something else, that's what we can control. I mean, we do our jobs daily. We arrest criminals. We put bad guys in jail. And at the end of the day, we have no control over whether these people are going to be prosecuted or not. But at the end of the day, we can say we did our job.
Well, and to my point about you working with local city officials back when Austin was defunded, Governor Abbott, at his direction, kind of gave McCraw the direction of, hey, we're going to put troopers on the ground. We're going to put troopers on the ground in Austin and assist APD and keep those communities safe. One of those instances where you were over that command, I guess you were a major then, right?
Correct.
So you were helping out APD and kind of facilitating that. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. How do you maintain the high morale with the troopers coming in an environment? When we started, I started in 2004-ish, and it seemed like the troopers that were going into DPS, they did not want to go to the Valley. Like the Valley was like, oh my God, I'm going to the border.
It's because it's a far drive.
Because it's a far drive, right? But now, talking to some troops, some younger troops, it's like, man, put me anywhere but Austin. Put me anywhere, but I don't want to be anywhere near that Travis County border just because of the politics involved. How difficult can it be to keep those guys on task and mission focused and to maintain a good relationship with the locals?
Yeah, honestly, I think it comes from the top. The messaging and our colonels do a really good job of pushing that messaging in service at their area meetings about, hey, DPS, again, we can't control the politics.
Yeah.
We can't control who's the elected DA. DPS is going to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that message has resonated all the way down, and troopers are, you despite all of that, these guys are highly motivated. We just had the top trooper competition last week where you got 140 troopers from across the state competing in physical fitness and driving and shooting and tactics and these guys all over the state. It doesn't really matter. I don't think those guys let the politics impact them and how they do their jobs, and they just do it and they do it well. But going back to what you're talking about, I was a major in criminal investigations division at the time. It wasn't even my region. But like we spoke earlier, that was one of the things that Colonel McCraw had asked me to do was get some messaging out there with the local media, the New York Times, about what we were doing in Austin to target violent crime. And like I told you before, this was a data-driven operation. We were not going into any community that didn't have that we didn't have data on as far as the number of calls for service, the violent crime that was occurring in those areas. And so our troopers were coming in and making a positive impact. And a lot of the community members were very appreciative of what we were doing in the community of Austin. Obviously, the perception was that we were unfairly targeting communities of color, but that was not the case at all. And if you were to poll those people that live in that community, they would like, hey, keep DPS here.
Well, and what's even more interesting is that for the cop out there that's listening, that's sitting in your patrol car right now in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot, I want you to process right now. You can name every single side street within a 2-mile radius. You take a trooper from Marshall, Texas, or take a trooper from Center, Texas, or Texarkana, or El Paso, and you stick them in Austin and say, go forth and conquer and go be police in an environment in a community that has been now defunded, and that is now it's not really a common occurrence to see a cop car. That's a dangerous situation. I don't care who you are or what badge you're wearing. You don't know the environment. You don't know where you're at. And so I thought about that when all the George Floyd protests were going on. They're sending troopers at the request of the colonel, and I get that. But I was thinking, man, those guys are in a unique situation, and they handle it professionally, and they handle it with class, and they stayed focused on the mission. So, hats off to those guys for doing that, and they're going to do it again if need be.
Yeah.
Same thing in Dallas. They did the same thing in Dallas. You guys kind of are always I don't want to say the stepchildren of kind of get, having to answer that call, but they do it, and they do it every single time, and they don't gripe about it. And that's what I love about the DPS troops do that.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the mission is. Those guys are going to go ahead and do it, and whether it's going down to the coast for hurricane duty or some other natural when West had the explosion, or Uvalde. Or some other mass shooting that's occurred. El Paso had the shooting. It doesn't really matter what the mission is. Those guys are going to come in and adapt to not only to the environment but to the situation. And despite what even coming to the Capitol, like we've got legislative session coming up next year. We're bringing in troopers from all over the state to augment my guys, and man, those guys have the best attitudes. Always, they stay professional. We get a lot of, compliments from our state reps and about how professional the troopers are. And they certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely a unique person to get to know, and one that I highly respect. And that being said, you look at me and Mike, and you look at the different facets and different aspects of different life incidences that have taken place. You yourself have had one of those situations, and the death of your brother. Going back to who the hell Gabe Ortiz is, let's kind of dive off into that, how it impacted you professionally, personally, and how it affected the family. Because last year that you'll have the story on your brother.
You talking about the podcast?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The podcast, it's called The Brothers Ortiz, was released in December last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's dive off into it, kind of how it all took place, very lightly, because I want to draw people to go listen to that podcast.
Sure.
But it's a very unique story.
Yeah. Well, it's unique in how this even came together. But brother and I, essentially the story is about two brothers who took two very different paths in life. I took the path of law enforcement, and brother took the path of crime. And I climbed the ranks of Texas DPS and rose to the level of a region chief. And my brother climbed the ranks of the gang world and became a shot caller with the Tango Blast. And so, but when we were younger, we're just two brothers, just like anybody else, and we were raised in a Christian home. But what really changed things, and because my brother and I were 4 years apart, I was older. But when I went to the U.S. Air Force, I was 19 years old and my brother was 15. That really hurt him. And he told me later on in life, he said, "Gabe, you left me. You looked out for me. You kept me out of trouble. I looked up to you." And that kind of stayed with me for a while. And it kind of hurt me that he said that, because I'm like, "Hey, bro, why didn't you follow me to the military? Why don't you take that path?" And you took a different path. Yeah. So that's what the story's about. Essentially, is the path between the two brothers, and the different lives that we've lived, and then ultimately it ends with the tragedy of him being murdered in 2023 by gang members. And so there's a whole other story behind that. But the investigation, my involvement in supporting law enforcement and bringing in the Rangers and bringing in CID and working real close with Brazoria County.
Yeah.
Bo Stallman, the sheriff out there, he and I were troopers together. The DA, Tom Selleck, my dad knew very well. The DA investigator at the time, EJ King, he and I were troopers together. The region chief out there, Gerald Brown in Houston, he and I came up through CID together. We were captains together. The Ranger chief I called, and the colonel I come in. So it was a lot of resources were made available to Brazoria County,
as it should be,
whenever that happened. And man, I'm so appreciative of everybody. And that to me, I just tell people, like, hey, that's why you never burn a bridge. I can pick up the phone and call anybody.
That's right.
And get some support or assistance, because I've never burned bridges in my life. And I think that's an important message in and of itself. But so that's essentially the story. And it's honestly, we just last month we had there were 6 people involved, 6 defendants involved in this murder. The 5th defendant just was found guilty and got a sentence of about 60 years last month, and so we've got one more to go, and I think that person's going to take a plea. But the shooter, the guy that shot my brother, actually got 40 years because he took the plea. The others that have actually tried to go to a jury trial have got a lot more than 40 years, which we're grateful for. But we still
fellow.
Yeah, they were
Tango.
No. None of them were Tango. They were actually the ones that actually had confirmed gang affiliations were blood members.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, that's the story. And it's not something that I promoted or initially, not something that I came up with the idea. It was actually a friend of mine who said, "Gabe, you got a really fascinating story." Former APD officer who now works for Apple, came from California, had some connections in Hollywood, but he's the one that said, "You got a fascinating story here." He had a friend named Frederick Cotto, who's a screenwriter for the show The Rookie on ABC.
Yeah.
We talked to him. He said, "You guys need to fly out here and talk to some execs in Hollywood." So we did. And we talked to them, and they said, "Hey, we want to start this out as a podcast." Man, they were very fascinated with the entire story and said, "Hey, we'd like to do a podcast. We've had some success in launching a podcast into a show or a movie." And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's cool
with the whole project. So.
And for those that don't know, Tango Blast is arguably probably the one of the most largest Latino gangs in Texas, and they're very unique in the sense you mentioned shot caller. when I was dealing with them at the jail in Dallas County, I didn't deal with them much in East Texas, but there's not like a leader for the most part. That's why they're so dangerous.
Right.
But it's one of the largest, and every town's got its different name. You got Allstone and Funky Town, Fort Worth, and it's a really unique and fascinating gang to investigate and to follow. So check out that podcast. We'll put the link down in the description. You guys can hear Gabe's story. But Gabe Ortiz, to the young trooper or young 18-year-old jailer that's sitting right now listening to this podcast or driving down the road right now, what advice would you tell him of all the departments you've worked for in this state and all the officers that you've worked for and gotten to know? What would be the best direction from you as a director with DPS right now? What would be the direction you would tell a young law enforcement officer wanting to pursue their career?
It just really depends on what they want to do. I mean, what I like about Texas DPS is that there's so many different things you can do. I mean, we've got multiple divisions. I mean, you come in as a trooper, you can be on the Executive Protection Bureau, assigned to protect the governor, lieutenant governor, or the AG. You can go into the Tactical Marine Unit. If you want to be on boats, you can be on SWAT. You can go in the Criminal Investigations Division. You can go to Texas Rangers. You can go aircraft and be a pilot. And there's just so many different things within DPS that you can do. I've talked to some guys and say, hey, I want to go federal. And I'm like, hey, if you want to go federal, that's great too. I mean, we need good guys in every aspect of law enforcement, every agency. So it really depends on what the 18-year-old wants to do with his career. But I can tell you right now that DPS is the best agency that I've ever worked for. They've treated me well. I've had some great supervisors and some great leaders, some great mentors. I wouldn't be a region chief right now had it not been for some of those guys before me, especially, going back to J.C. Welch, who said you need to be a trooper. And at the time, not knowing what DPS was, who they were, what they did. And so we need those guys in our lives to kind of give us some direction on what it is we want to pursue.
And who was the trooper that you met with at the jail JC introduced you to?
Anthony Bennett.
For the trooper out there that's listening, that's the 40-year-old you're going in and you're booking somebody in, be Trooper Bennett. If you see a young man that has an interest, and listen, let's just call it what it is. We all know what we're talking about. The young jailer that's tricked out, that's wearing the duty belt and imitating everything that a street cop wants to do. Right. Don't be that guy and put him down. Don't make fun of him. Go out there and say, hey, man, is there anything I can do to help you out? And pursue and push that kid's career. Because what happened to Gabe is exactly what we should be doing in law enforcement, because I'm telling you right now, the recruitment and retention crisis is real. And we need to do a better job of promoting within and promoting young people to be interested in this beloved career field that we all love. And so be the Trooper Bennett. So he can be the Gabe Ortiz, I guess is the long, short story. I've had some Scott Burns, Trooper Scott Burns, God rest his soul, was a guy that was very influential in my career. And he did pass away April 29, 2008. Mike Horn was also his fellow trooper. But guys like that have the heart of gold, that want to see others promote and be good law enforcement, man, it's something special. It's something special.
It's unique because, looking back even at my career, what I'm doing today, I had no idea even existed. Actually, it really didn't.
Right.
And when this opportunity came up over 20 years ago, the first thing in my head is like, what is that? What do they do? I've never even heard of them. I did some adjunct instructor for them because nobody wanted to teach cultural diversity and I needed the money. That's how I met Tmpa, And so coming into something new that I knew nothing about was terrifying, but exciting at the same time, and exhausting because every day was different. I would be in a different part of the state, meeting a different type of cop, Now, all that traveling didn't do good on my stomach because everywhere I ate was something different, but I got to learn a lot about different cuisines, different type of, I didn't know that Hispanic in South Texas is not the same as the one in New Pass, Del Rio, or El Paso.
No, it's not.
No.
The dialect's different, food is different, So that being said, going through this and my law enforcement career, at the very beginning of this, I was talking to a lot of cadets, trying to recruit them, but still trying to guide them in the right direction when I was done. Like, take it from a guy with some experience. Once you get that first job, don't go buy yourself a new car or a boat or a motorcycle. All of you are going to do that, Go buy a house. Buy a house. The first thing you need to do is your first purchase and go from there, because real estate, they'll make way more of it.
Right.
Whether they listen to that or not, I don't know, because I didn't.
That's how I was talking to Brian Baxter the other day, now the big dog for science, former captain with DPS.
Yeah, like I told you earlier, Brian and I came up with CID together. He's a good friend of mine.
And he was telling me, Mike, he was like, man, if I'd look back at every duty station I was at as a trooper, I wish I'd about property. I said about property, every single duty station, and then looked at that, as an investment later on. John Vance, same thing. I was talking to John 2 weeks ago, and he's like, man, if I look back and look, I wish I would have kept the property I owned as the first duty station. But no, to your point, the state's so big, and you look at DPS, and you look at all the different aspects of what they had to bring to the table. Pay, y'all's pay continues to stay competitive. And I think that kudos to those that are listening that have any control of that with the state legislatives or the higher ups in DPS to be competitive on paper, to keep that retention and recruitment with DPS strong, because you guys need it. But to Mike's point, this is a huge state, and there's so many different levels of, you can be in the Texas Hill Country up to the Panhandle, down to the Valley, even over to East Texas and the Piney Curtain. And it's a pretty cool agency to be a part of. So,
yeah. Hey, one of the things too, I was going to say, for the listeners who understand the DPS organizational structure, because a lot of people don't. I mean, it's a huge organization. We're always changing our names and titles and division names. So back, it used to be regional commander, then it went to regional director, and now we are region chiefs. So that change that changed last year.
Sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. But people are, who's listening may get confused. I'm like, like, what is his position? So that just changed. People still get confused by it. I still get called director by people, on my staff. So not a big deal, but just for people that actually know, it is a region chief, and I got appointed to that position in February of 2024, and so 2 years and some change. But
well, you're still there, so that's a good.
Yeah, and believe me, at the Capitol, you can get fired pretty quickly. So. McCraw used to tell me that, Colonel McCraw used to tell me that quite a bit. And he's like, hey, Gabe is probably the region chief that can get fired the quickest. So he would say that in open meetings. And, but hey, something else I wanted to say is I became a big fan of TMPA, in 2021, was never a member. You got all these, you got CLEAT, you got Tmpa, you got DPSOA, and all these organizations, and all of them do great things for law enforcement. But in 2021, my uncle passed away. He was a Colorado County deputy, and it was one of those during COVID, it was presumptive that he contracted COVID during a prisoner transport. He ended up dying. And, my poor aunt calls me, and he and I were the only law enforcement officers in the family. And she's like, Gabe, can you help me? And, I don't know what to do. And this whole process is so overwhelming for me. And I remember he would always talk about Tmpa. And so I didn't know anybody with Tmpa at the time, but I called, and within like 24 hours, I had somebody communicating with her, helping her navigate that entire process on what to do, because it was considered a line of duty death. Mm-hmm. And they helped her with that entire process. They helped her get plugged into COPS and the Peace Officer Memorial and all the different things. And it was shortly after that I was like, you know what, man, because you guys did so much for my family, I instantly joined Tmpa and became a member.
That's cool, man. And I'll for the listener out there that doesn't know, for the longest time, Dallas County was our largest local, right, with Tmpa. And as of last year, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, correct if I'm wrong, DPS is the largest across the state.
I don't know the exact number, but we're over 1,100 now.
That's great.
And it's not from going to their cadet classes and recruiting them or anything like that. This is just word of mouth, or they worked somewhere before, came to DPS and said, no, I'm going to keep my Tmpa affiliation, which is something we're proud of. And one of the other things important to remember, and not a lot of them have this information yet, but we now have payroll deduction through the state comptroller's office.
Yeah.
We had to have we had to meet a criteria of 2,000 state employees as our members before we could move forward with that, or they would allow it. And since we had, game wardens, TABC, the governor's office and stuff like that, we met that 2,000 threshold. And I think it's been about 6 months now.
It has been.
That we now offer payroll reduction through the state. So it makes it a little easier.
It does.
Because credit cards expire.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
But I think to Gabe's point, again, DPSOA, CLEAT, Texas FOP, any of the statewide associations, I think what separates TMPA, and to your point is that we continue to kind of assist people regardless of their membership affiliation. Just last week, we helped a Blanco County family with one of their families, and it wasn't a line of duty death, but it was a situation where they needed assistance, and they got turned away from another statewide organization, and we stepped in and helped out. But I think, to Kevin Lawrence's quote, do the right thing when nobody's watching. I think that's what matters, and I think that's kind of the definition of integrity. And I think that TMPA continues to kind of do that on a statewide level. So thank you for sharing that. It means a lot. It's a testament to your family, and also our respect that we have for all law enforcement families, whatever hard times they're going through. So, Mike, you got anything else?
Yeah, good. It's I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to say it's hard, but when we identify someone with as unique as you and your situation now, your the position that you hold, I think it's a good motivator, and it's good. It influences our younger cops. They need to hear a story. They need to hear some positive stuff, especially the way things go right now, back and forth, and everyone's worried about something or another. I'm worried about diesel prices because I got a bottle of Dooley, so I'm worried about that.
Well, I want to know what the hell Gabe drinks in his coffee in the morning, because he does not age at all. He looks about 32 and looks like he's been cut out of a Men's Health magazine. So whatever the hell you're drinking in the morning, you need to pass on the recipe, because Mike and you are the same age, and I got to tell you, I'm favoring on the Gabe side for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, hey, we got 3 rapid fire questions we usually end every podcast on. Hope you hadn't studied.
Okay.
What is your favorite line from a cop movie, your favorite cop movie? What's your favorite cop car? And what's your favorite drink of choice when you're hanging out alone with friends, relaxing off of DPS time?
Favorite cop movie was probably Training Day.
Best cop movie you ever. Well, that and Third Watch, or what's the LAPD? But yeah, Training Day's a good one.
I'm like the weapon guy.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And I don't remember exactly, but I think it was, you want to go to jail or you want to go home?
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So
that's a good one.
What was the second?
What's your favorite cop car?
Man, I really liked the old Mustang.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, man. I never got to drive one. I never got to drive in a passenger with it.
I didn't get to drive one, but I did ride with DPS for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
God, I love that car.
They were good. 5.0s.
5.0.
They were good looking too.
And I didn't have one issued to me, but I had an opportunity to drive one, man, and I love that car.
Didn't DPS for a short stint? Didn't they have like either SSs or Z28s?
We did. We had
the bubble. Yeah, the bubble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite drink of choice when you're hanging out off the clock?
Man, I like some good bourbon.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say which one's my favorite because there's a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, just big block ice, sipping a little bourbon.
There you go.
Four Roses good. Buffalo Trace, some Blanton's. Can't go wrong.
There you go.
Yeah.
From Gabe Ortiz himself. Mike, you got anything else?
No. Just a reminder of signing up for conference.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, July 24th to the 26th, TMPA Joint Texas FOP Conference is going to be there in Dallas at the Hyatt Regency. Get online, tmpa.org, get those registrations complete. You can also find the hotel link on our landing page through the website, which is going to be handbid.com. That link will be provided there on the TMPA website. It's going to be a good time. You're going to see lots of people, lots of networking. You'll probably see Chief Ortiz come, as he's attended some conferences before. It's a good networking opportunity for those that are interested in attending. We can't wait to see you and your family. Very family-oriented event. So if you got any kiddos, bring them. We're going to have some different kid events going on, as well as spousal events. April 30th, I believe. Let me check my phone for the Texas Peace Officer Memorial. Chief Ortiz is going to have the security covered. You and your troops do a great job getting all that stuff lined out. It's going to be April 26th at 7 p.m. is going to be the Texas Peace Officer Memorial. They're on the Capitol grounds. If you've never been, I strongly, strongly encourage you guys to attend. Honor the fallen and honor the families that show up. We'll have some dignitaries there that the families meet with. It's a very, very somber moment, I think, and a good event for any Texas Peace Officer to attend. Seeing the uniforms as a family of a survivor, it means a lot to them because that's all they talk about on the ride home. Very seldom does a family remember what the governor said to them or what speeches were said, but they will always remember how many different cops showed up and how many different patches that they can remember. That seems to be always the stories that I continue to hear. Gabe, I'm sure you can kind of contest to that, but April 26th, it's going to be there on the Capitol grounds. It's going to be a good time. So anyway, you guys take care, stay safe. God bless you. And as always, may God bless Texas. We're out.